Hey there, YouTube Video Game Cabinet here. Today I'm going over what I think are the 35 best video games of the 5th generation. According to Wikipedia, this includes the Sega Saturn, the PlayStation 1, the Nintendo 64, and the Game Boy Color. And I'm going to throw in a couple of PC games here and there. These are games that I have beaten from start to finish, end credits, and a lot of these I haven't played in a long time, in some cases over 20 years, so I'm going by memory here. I need to replay some of these. I need to replay a lot of these. This list will be massaged over time. It's not perfect, it never will be. This is just how I feel today, just as I was saying with the 3rd and 4th generation lists earlier this week. Also, one thing I want to mention, more especially true now, I'm not going to be including reskins or compilations here. I will be including drastic remakes that change a lot of the game, even if that game was from a previous generation. That's going to be more important going forward now and with future generational lists that I make in the next couple weeks. Yeah, so as of now in October 2023, this is my top 35 video games of the 5th generation. Coming in at number 35, I'm given to Wave Race 64 on the Nintendo 64. I remember this game being really impressive with its water effects and graphics. This game just really showed off what the Nintendo 64 could do and was a really great launch title for the system, and just a really fun racing game that I still think is a lot of fun today. Number 34, I'm giving a tie to Panzer Dragoon and Panzer Dragoon 2's Way on the Sega Saturn. I remember the first Panzer Dragoon being an amazing launch title for the Sega Saturn, really showing what the system was capable of graphically, and Part 2 improving upon the formula and evolving it just a little bit, and being a really awesome on-rail shooter. Both of these, a lot of fun, really classic games that are easy to pick up and play. Number 33, I'm going with Twisted Metal 2 on PS1. It's a little bit dated now, but it's still awesome. I remember that this game started having destructible environments with the Eiffel Tower and the Paris stage, and that was really cool. This is one I haven't played in a long time, but I remember it being a lot of fun. The characters, the cars were really fun to pick from and battle against each other in two-player split screen. And it just had a lot of variety, and it was just really fun to play with friends or single player. For 32, we have a tie with Zelda Oracle of the Ages and Zelda Oracle of the Seasons. These two kind of go in tandem. They link up to each other. Haven't played these two in a while, but I remember them being really fun, and playing them both back to back, and just really, you know, it's a little bit Formula Zelda, but it's good. It mixes it up by combining the two games to where they work in tandem, and good puzzles. Both games had their own unique flavor, and you know, Zelda Oracle of the Ages had a little bit to do with time travel, and Oracle of the Seasons a little bit with weather, and you know, these were really good games. Number 31, I'm going with Metal Gear Solid on the Game Boy Color, also known as Ghost Babel. This was a very impressive game for the Game Boy Color, and what they were able to fit onto the cartridge here. This kind of worked as a little bit of a side story in the series, but I thought it was really good. Very impressive. They made the stealth gameplay surprisingly deep, and the graphics and the sounds were very impressive for such limited hardware, and they really did a very good job of bringing this game to life on the Game Boy Color. And yeah, I just remember this being really fun. My number 30 game is Power Slave on the Sega Saturn. This is actually a very recent playthrough that I've done in the last year, and this is a really impressive Sega Saturn game that's a first-person shooter, but it has elements that were later done in Metroid Prime that came years later. So This game was very much ahead of its time. It's a little bit dated, but it's still got really, really impressive graphics and speed for a Sega Saturn game. And, you know, it kind of does the 3D thing pretty well for a Sega Saturn game. And it's a very fun, impressive title. Number 29, I'm going with Final Fantasy IX. It has been quite a while since I played this one. I'm definitely going to have to replay it sometime soon. I think I played it just a couple years after it came out, which was well over 20 years ago. I remember this being really good, with really good music, polished gameplay, beautiful graphics. Definitely up to the standard of Final Fantasy. It's not one of my top favorites in this series, but I remember it being really good and a very solid entry in this wonderful franchise. Number 28, I'm going with Silent Hill for its incredible atmosphere and level of creepiness and psychological horror. This was really excellent survival horror. You know, it was like Resident Evil, but way more creepy and even more atmospheric. And I've only played Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3, but I would say this is my favorite of the first 3 Silent Hill games, and I just thought this was an excellent representation of the survival horror genre. Number 27, I'm going with Guardian Heroes for the Sega Saturn. This is one of the best beat-em-ups ever made. There's several different characters that you can choose from. There's branching paths, many branching paths. The graphics are gorgeous. The 2D sprites and animation, the sprites are very large. This is a very impressive 2D Saturn game that really shows how powerful the 2D graphics were on the Sega Saturn. And it's made by Treasure, who always makes great action games. And this is just a lot of fun and a real gem on the Sega Saturn. Number 26, I'm going with Valkyrie Profile for PS1. This was a beautiful game with gorgeous 2D graphics and animations, and it had a very deep combat system with a lot of very unique RPG gameplay elements. This played different than any other RPG I've ever played before. It had a very, very steep learning curve, and it took me tons of hours of research to understand how to play it, but it was very much worth the time investment, and it was a fantastic game. Number 25, I'm going with Vagrant Story. This is another one that I remember being really, really good. I played it back when it came out, which was well over 20 years ago, but I remember it being really atmospheric, beautiful cutscenes and beautiful graphics, just very dark, brooding atmosphere, and really fun gameplay where you could chain together combos and you were exploring this big underground dungeon. It was really good and very unique title for the PS1. Number 24, I'm going with the original Tomb Raider on PS1. This is still my favorite in the series. I loved exploring the underground caves and everything. It's been a long time since I played this, but I remember the puzzles being really good, Laura being a really cool lead character with a lot of sex appeal, but yeah, the Laura kind of made this game stand out with publicity, but it was still a really, really good title that was just really fun to explore the depths of these large levels and solve the puzzles. This was a classic. Number 23, I'm going with Final Fantasy Tactics. Man, this is one of the best soundtracks in any game ever. They really, really did a good job with this, and the strategy RPG battle system using the job system was incredible. I will have to say that a lot of the politics of the storyline I got kind of lost with. It was very hard to follow, but the gameplay itself, the battles and the music were outstanding. This one is really good. You know, if I could follow the story a little better, this would rank even higher, but it was still a very, very good game. Number 22, I'm giving to Shantae on the Gameboy Color, and yes, this is authentic, and it's definitely one of the prized pieces in my collection, but besides the collectability, it's a great game. The graphics are super impressive for a Game Boy Color, and so is the music, and I love Shantae's personality, and her character is great. And the gameplay itself, it's like Simon's Quest and Fact Xanadu, a little bit of Metroidvania element here and there, but it's wonderful. There's a wide open interconnected map, and it's just a lot of fun, a lot of charm. You know, you can turn into different animals towards the end, and this one I just had a joy with, and it later spawned a wonderful series of platformers, and it's just a really great game that still holds up today, in my opinion. Number 21, I'm giving to Resident Evil 2 on the PS1. I remember this being an awesome sequel to the classic original, and you could play as Claire or Leon and go through two different campaigns that kind of interconnected here and there, and it was a lot of fun. More blasting away zombies in a really creepy atmosphere, scary game. But this time you're inside a police building. This one I had a lot of fun with. It's been a while since I played it, but I remember it being a really great game. Number 20, I'm giving to Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete. Technically, this is a remake of a game that came out in the previous generation, which I did not play that version. I have it right there, but this is the version that I played, and I remember it being really good. I loved how it took place, you know, generations later after the original, and it was like the descendants of the original's heroes, and it was really cool when the main villain from the first one showed up in this one. And it's this one I'm gonna have to replay again. It's been a long time, over 20 years since I played this one, but I remember the beautiful graphics and just gorgeous music, incredible soundtrack that came with this, and yeah, I just remember this being a really great game that I'm gonna have to replay sometime soon. Number 19, I'm giving to Wipeout XL. I remember sinking so many hours into playing this game over and over and over back in grade school. This was the fastest, coolest, futuristic racing game ever at the time, and it was my favorite racing game for a very, very long time. This game was just so much fun, so badass. It was like F-Zero on steroids. It just, the soundtrack was badass. I love the techno music. This game just felt super fast, super graphically impressive, and just really gave me that sense of speed that I look for in a racing game. Just too much fun. Number 18, I am giving to the original Resident Evil. This game had a big, big impact on me back in grade school. This game looked and felt unlike anything else that had come before. It really felt like you were inside of a horror movie, and the voice acting, people make fun of it, it's a little cheesy, but it still felt like a real movie when you were playing it and watching it, and it was really scary. The graphics, the pre-rendered background with the 3D characters worked great. It was a beautiful game. This game spawned a big series, but this first entry is still very close to the top, in my opinion. It really still holds up very well, and this was just such an impressive game for its time. Number 17, I'm giving to Doom, either on the PC or this PlayStation 1 port. I know they did a good job with this. This game, Doom and Doom 2, Ultimate Doom and Doom 2, those games really changed the face of first-person shooters, and I remember my friends back in grade school, we were all playing Doom obsessively, either on the PC or on one of the console ports, and it was just so much fun. Just running around, blowing up the monsters, exploring the levels, finding, you know, the way to finish the levels and get through. It was just so much fun and just amazing action, so addictive. This game had a big impact on the culture and my circle of friends back in grade school. 16, I'm giving to Radiant Silvergun. This is a contender for best shmup ever made. I remember this game was just so awesome on the Sega Saturn. You had to import it, but I love the way there were 6 different weapons that you were given, and when you died, you didn't lose everything like you do in R-Type or some of these other shmups. And you know, it didn't punish you like that, but it was still brutally hard. Luckily, on this Saturn version, there's a mode where you can keep unlocking more lives, and eventually, you can definitely beat it with enough perseverance and just collecting more power-ups and lives, and or leveling up. And I just remember that this being so good. It's been a while since I popped it in, but the graphics and the music and everything were really powerful, and this was just such a great import for the Sega Saturn. 15, I'm giving to GoldenEye for the N64. I remember that this game had a big impact on everybody. I actually ended up playing through it after Perfect Dark came out and after running through that game, but I still love this one. It just so much fun. The way you could snipe enemies, the levels, there were different objectives that opened up when you increased the difficulty. And I beat this on all the difficulty settings, running through all the levels, and it was such a challenge and such an accomplishment to get the whole game completed back in college. And I put my blood, sweat, and tears into finishing this one. This was really, really fun. I love this game, and multiplayer split screen, of course, was a lot of fun. Number 14, I am giving to Perfect Dark. This was the spiritual successor to GoldenEye, and it's neck and neck. I'm placing it just above that game. This game blew me away. This is the game that finally made me break and say, all right, I have to buy a Nintendo 64 right now. This was really, really impressive stuff back in the day. So much fun playing multiplayer or single player. This one I made it through all the levels on all the difficulty settings, and it was, at the time, just about the hardest thing I'd ever done in a video game. And, it was such an accomplishment and so much fun, so much variety of weapons. Everything was like in the future, a slight bit into the future, so the guns still felt realistic but futuristic. And it was just so cool, and the atmosphere and the music and everything. This was a really, really impressive title for the system. 13, I'm giving to Super Mario 64. Wow, this really changed the way that 3D games were made and the way that 2D games were brought into the 3D. And it just felt like nothing else before, and so much fun. To this day, this game still holds up. It's an absolute classic, definitely a masterpiece of the N64, and really showed what the system was capable of, and brought the classic series into 3D and really gave a roadmap for everybody on how to do that. And the controls were amazing. Getting all 120 stars was just so much fun, and constantly going back to the levels to get other stars, and then the objectives changing. Just so much fun and great challenge and fun at the same time. This game is just a classic. Number 12, I'm giving to XCOM UFO Defense, either on the PC or this PlayStation 1 port here. It's been a very long time since I played this one, but I remember it being so engrossing. There's a very steep learning curve, but I just remember this game being incredible and taking me on an epic journey to defeat these aliens invading Earth. I remember the way the battles work. It's turn-based, so when you're waiting for the aliens to move, it creates such a level of atmosphere and tension that is undescribable, and the turn-based combat here really makes it. And yes, there is a steep learning curve, but it's very much worth the time investment. I'm gonna have to go back and play this one again because it's been probably a good 20 years since I ran through it. But this game, it was really a classic, and just an unforgettable experience. Number 11, I'm giving to Panzer Dragoon Saga for the Sega Saturn. I remember buying this back in my senior year of high school, which was year 2000, 2001. And I remember being so proud to own this. And this game took the series into the RPG realm, and it was amazing. It played like a dream. The world that this series created is just unlike anything you've ever seen in a video game, and it's just beautiful, flying on this dragon in this world that looked almost post-apocalyptic. And I remember the story being really good. This is another one I'm gonna have to go back and replay sometime. Haven't played it in about 20 years, but I remember it being amazing. Amazing gameplay, amazing the way they combined the two older games with an RPG elements, and this was just an unforgettable masterpiece. Number 10 is Dragon Force on the Sega Saturn. I remember getting this back in high school as well, and this was just so epic. The way there were 200 characters on screen battling, Braveheart style, but with anime graphics. This was such an impressive game at the time, and there really hasn't been anything like it before or since that I've seen, and it was a very long game that demanded a lot of time and attention. You could pick between several different kings of different realms, and they would all have their own storylines, so there was so much replay value here, and it just took me on a big quest, and I love this game to death. Number 9, I'm giving to Lunar Silver Star Story Complete on PS1. Once again, this is a remake of Lunar Silver Star Story on Sega CD, but this remake makes a lot of changes that I think are for the better, and this is the version that I played first. This game is, I remember it being just a wonderful, wonderful RPG with memorable characters, endearing characters, very emotional at the end, beautiful anime style, gorgeous music, wonderful cutscenes. This game really, I fell in love with it back in high school, and I still love it to this day. This was an amazing RPG on a system loaded with wonderful RPGs. 8, I am giving to Chrono Cross. This is the sequel to Chrono Trigger, and I like it even better than the original, personally. This is a contender for my favorite soundtrack in any video game ever, and that is a bold statement. This game had incredible music, but not only that, gorgeous graphics, incredible atmosphere that just, again, like the best video games, it takes me into a world I've never seen, and it feels like a dream. And I loved the way, okay, there's a silent protagonist here. I usually don't prefer that, but Surge talks a little bit. They give you a little bit of choices that you can make, and they switch characters halfway through. I don't want to spoil too much. The way they did that I thought was really good. And especially the beginning of the game really sucks me in. It feels like a Twilight Zone episode. The way, you know, certain things feel like they're happening to you. And I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, this is another one with multiple endings and great replay value that I definitely want to go back and see more of the endings. I beat this almost 20 years ago, but I remember it being an amazing, amazing dreamlike masterpiece. Number 7, I'm going with Metal Gear Solid. This game was amazing back in the day. Solid Snake was just the most badass hero. The storyline was so good, so cinematic. It just sucked me right in. It was an amazing game that just was unlike anything that we had seen before, and this game had a big impact on me, and none of the sequels ever reached the height of this original. This game was a masterpiece. The story, the characters, everything was just so entertaining, and the way it felt like a movie was took cinematic video gaming to new heights. This game is just a classic, and just endlessly playable, and just so much fun and so engrossing. Number 6, I'm going with Grandia. I know this came out on the Sega Saturn in Japan, but it came out on the PS1 here in the States, and that's where I played it. I remember this being a really big, epic adventure. I played it way back in high school when it came out, over 20 years ago, but then I played it again about 10 years ago, and this game, the endearing characters, the story, the sense of adventure, the long quest, and the battle system, at least at the time, was the best and funnest battle system I've ever seen in an RPG. And it really was just so much fun battling the enemies, and it really combined action with turn-based RPG, and just a masterpiece game that's just unforgettable. Number 5, I'm giving to Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This is probably still the best in the Metroidvania genre. It's really close between this and Super Metroid that I put on last gen's list. Man, the music in this game, this is another one of the best soundtracks in any game ever. And it's the best Castlevania game ever. It tops Dracula X. This game, just such a masterpiece, exploring the entire Dracula's castle and then having it flip upside down halfway through, and the boss battles and everything. And again, exploring with that glorious soundtrack. Really, this game, I think, has yet to be topped. And it's just an absolute classic masterpiece. Number 4, I'm going with Shining Force 3, Scenarios 1, 2, and 3. The American version was only Scenario 1, but in Japan they got 3 scenarios, and I eventually played it on this English translated reproduction. But these are the authentic right here. Shining Force 3, all 3 scenarios took me 175 hours to beat. It is the longest single-player campaign I have ever played in any game ever, but the epic tale that this game tells, I beat it a couple of years ago. Finally, I'd been wanting to play all 3 scenarios for so long, and it did not disappoint. This game, the strategy RPG gameplay, it's you know, it's much easier to pick up and play than, say, something like Final Fantasy Tactics, and I think it's the best in the business. This is the best strategy RPG ever made, in my opinion, by far. The story is just epic. It's like the Game of Thrones of video games, where there's different political parties and families plotting against each other, while this enemy force is trying to awaken this demon on the other side of the world. And like I said, 175 hours. This game is epic with a capital EPIC. And it's just so much fun with a beautiful soundtrack from start to finish. It's a real shame we never got this officially in the United States, but like I said, some fans translated it to English, and you can buy it on Repro. But there's the authentic American right there. But this game is just an absolute masterpiece. Number 3, I'm giving to The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. This is absolutely the finest game on the Nintendo 64, and it's the one that really made me sore to not own one at the time. I eventually broke and got one a couple years later, but this game was just beautiful, and I loved A Link to the Past so much, and Ocarina of Time is an amazing follow-up that brought the series to 3D and introduced Z-targeting that also had a big impact on 3D gaming at the time. And, you know, exploring the world and the sense of discovery, just like Zelda 1, 2, and 3, was just magical. This game is just such a work of art and such an epic masterpiece. I played this back in late high school, and I'm gonna have to play it again. This game was just unforgettable and had a huge impact on the culture and everything, and it's just an absolute masterpiece. There's really nothing else to say. My number 2 pick is Final Fantasy VII. God, I remember playing this back in freshman year of high school, right when it came out, and this is the game that got me into RPGs. Just such an incredible, epic experience with an amazing story, amazing cast of characters. The graphics were gorgeous at the time with the 3D characters and the pre-rendered backgrounds. This game, just another one that just took me on an unforgettable journey with unforgettable, endearing characters, and one of my favorite villains of all time, Sephiroth. He was amazing. He might still be the best villain in the whole series. This game really just had a big impact on me in my youth, and it's still amazing today. And it's just absolutely a perfect RPG in my opinion. And the soundtrack gets me, the graphics get me, and I love the gameplay, everything about it. The story just sweeps me, and I just can't sing enough praises about it. And my number 1 favorite game of the 5th generation is, and always will be, Xenogears for PlayStation 1. This game has the greatest storyline in any RPG or video game ever, in my opinion. And the soundtrack is another contender for my favorite video game soundtrack of all time. It's very close between this and a couple others. Wow, what can I say about this game? I don't want to spoil the story at all, but it's the best I've ever seen in any game ever. The characters are unforgettable. There's so many heroes and so many villains, all with their own backstories. There's so many different timelines going on throughout the whole game, and it's just the most epic scope of a story I've ever seen in any video game, and it's just, it's my favorite game of this generation and my favorite game of all time. I don't want to say anymore. I just suggest you go out and play it if you haven't already. So there you go. That's my top 35 of the 5th generation. I can tell you that this list was especially hard to hammer out because, like I said, a lot of these games I haven't played in a while, and you know, very close to the top, I definitely get sure of my placement. I mean, without a doubt, Xenogears is number 1. That is without question. But as it gets further down, even down towards the end of the top 10, it was very, very hard for me to decide. And all throughout the rest of these games, they were all wonderful. But you know, I'm going based on memory. A lot of these I played 20 years ago, so it's tough to say. But you know, if I'm making this list now as of October of 2023, and this is how I feel today. But Xenogears, FF7, Zelda, Ocarina of Time, the Shining Force 3 scenarios, Symphony of the Night, Grandia, Metal Gear Solid, Chrono Cross, Lunar Silver Star Story Complete, Dragon Force, Panzer Dragoon Saga, and XCOM UFO Defense. Those games I would confidently give a 10 out of 10. Some of these are close to 10, but I'm going to go 9.5 on Super Mario 64, Perfect Dark, GoldenEye, Radiant Silvergun, Doom, and Resident Evil. Those are definitely worth about at least a 9.5. And then Wipeout XL, Lunar 2, Resident Evil 2, Shantae, Final Fantasy Tactics, Tomb Raider, Vagrant Story, Valkyrie Profile, and Guardian Heroes and Silent Hill. Those would be about a 9. And this bottom row here, at least an 8.5. Final Fantasy 9, like I said, I haven't played that one in a while, but Power Slave, Metal Gear Solid, Ghost Babel, Zelda, Oracle of Ages and Seasons, Twisted Metal 2, Panzer Dragoon 1 and 2, and Wave Race 64. Those would definitely be an 8.5. But, God, like I said, my taste changes over time. You know, who knows what this list will look like in 6 months. A lot of these I really have to play again. But I remember loving them all. And for now, that is my top 35 of Generation 5.